Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Composer's Voice Watch Party. My name is Rob Voisey. I'm the director of Composer's Voice, and just put this watch party together to, watch Composer's Voice. It airs every 2 weeks at the moment at the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and part of it is just to bring on some of the artists to if you to answer any of your questions and get to know people a little bit better. um, Today is great. We're joined from a couple of composers versus our artist, David Bohn. He plays the organ, and then we have two composers here below us, Paul Burnell and Kirsten Johnson, who are both currently in the UK. Um, David, why don't we just start with you? Why don't you tell us a little bit, who you are and about this performance that we're going to be seeing for 15 Minutes of Fame?
Okay. Well, you can hear me, can't you? Okay, good. Um, I'm a Wisconsin native and uh, organist, composer, other instruments, music historian, etc. And when I got word that the OHS was returning to Wisconsin for a convention. Back in my more hirsute days, I was actually second in command for the 1990 OHS convention in Milwaukee. And so I was looking forward to it, and I immediately reached out to the other members of the convention committee and proposed me doing this program, and they accepted it, and it happened.
And I don't
So,
know, did we tell everybody OHS stands for Oregon
Oregon
Historical Society?
Historical Society, yes. Um,
Yeah.
it's actually this coming year is, I think, the 70th anniversary of the organization. And anywho, so I put out the call. We got 77 submissions. I picked 15 of them for this particular event, and then I arranged for uh, performances of 3 additional sets, two of which were just premiered at the end of January. And I just literally today started my first serious practice on the set for June. Um,
Right.
so out of 77 pieces, 70 uh, out of 77 pieces, 60 of them are getting performed as part of these official sets. And
Wow.
so yeah, um, picking
And I guess,
picking for this was a little bit different because I also had to follow kind of the OHS guidelines as far as the sort of program to be done, which did not include anything as far as stylistic limitations. And in fact, one of the other performers did the Ligeti Second Organ Etude uh, on their program, which is much farther out than anything I did. But there were certain things as far as uh, how to demonstrate the organ and so forth, which put an additional layer of consideration over a bunch of the pieces. So as I was sorting through things, things went into, okay, I can use this to demonstrate this, I can use that to demonstrate that. And then I would pick one from each of those categories. So there was a whole extra layer of decision making on top of my normal programming habits.
And I guess I should also just mention to everybody, this is for 15 minutes of fame. It's 15 1-minute works. They're all written for a specific musician or instrument. In this case, it was for David Bohn on the organ. Yeah, and and I should comment, before we go to the composers, is I love David Bohn because he's one of those musicians who can't get enough. Like, so you said you got 77 submissions,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's picked 4 sets of 15. So that's 60 composers getting a performance from works that they have submitted to the project. 15 Minutes of Fame has always been like a project of maximalists to try to get as many composers out there, get their pieces heard. But I feel like David takes that to the next level. And meanwhile, so we have Paul and Kirsten here. Paul, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you hail from?
Yeah, currently I'm a composer, a musician living in London in the UK, but I was originally born in Wales, South Wales, lived there for the first 14 years of my life, but left then and moved around with my family in various parts of the UK, ending up in London, where I've been since the 80s, studied music at university, but then sort of dropped out of music for about 12 years, picking it up in my 30s again and started composing. A lot of the work that I've been writing has been for amateur ensembles, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's that I'm composing, or composers who write for amateurs necessarily write simple music or straightforward music. But I found it very rewarding, right? Always trying to think of either writing for musicians of all abilities or trying to find ways to express what might be sometimes complex ideas in very simple ways. So, for example, I've been writing a lot over the years, for the past 20 years, for an organization called Contemporary Music Making for Amateurs, or for Contemporary Music Making for All, rather. And they commission pieces, they set up workshops, they have ensembles all around the UK, and they've got a festival coming up next month. So yeah, that's sort of my background, but also I record quite a lot of my own material, and put it out there in the world on Spotify or wherever. And some of those recordings in the past have ended up on Rob's other projects back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, in the 60 by 60 series of CDs, which I was very pleased to be taking a part in. So that's where I am.
It's been a pleasure to present your music, Paul, for all these years. It's been great.
Great. Thank you.
60 by project, great electronic. Well, there's still a dance project that happens in Slippery Rock once a year, and so forth. But that's we'll have to bring that full force. I think we've got an anniversary coming up. We'll have to do something for that. And Kirsten, how about you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Thanks so much, Rob. So I was born in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and lived in the States most of my young life, in various parts. And the interesting bit for tonight's broadcast, Rob, is that when we lived in Missouri and I was sort of a teenager, I had the opportunity to take on being an organist because the local chapel at the university wanted another organist. So piano and clarinet were my primary instruments, and I was composing, of course. But I learned the organ, and when this call came up, it was great to actually write a piece for this particular organ because it's a 2 manual without a foot pedal board. And it was just really nice to think of the sounds that could be encapsulated in a historic organ like this. So it's a meditative piece, but something that just felt right for this call. And I was so pleased that David had offered us the opportunity to write for that instrument and for this call. I've lived in the UK for many years now. I happen to fall in love with an Englishman, so it's his fault. when we married, he was willing to come to the States. I was willing to come here, and it's just that the careers worked out where he's here as a lecturer at the University of Oxford, and I'm very happy being a composer and musician. And sort of we've had a brilliant sort of partnership over the years with him loving my music, but as he's not a musician, I don't get sort of that hothouse effect of two musicians having to live with each other. But I have somebody who is very keen and loves to listen to my music and loves this little piece that I wrote for tonight. What am I doing? So recently I've had a disc of my piano pieces released. I recorded that for Centaur Records, so listeners can look for that. That was a 2025 release, which is on Spotify and all the different streaming services. And then a couple of months ago, I had two of my orchestra pieces released again through Centaur, and those are on Spotify. So check out my website if you want to have more links to that music. But thank you, Rob, for having me tonight. Thank you, David, for playing the piece.
Pleasure. I think one of the reasons I love this call and I'm putting this particular project together was that sort of affinity for the organ. So I feel like when you put out a call for organ, it's kind of hard because it can be very site specific. Organs can be very different from instrument to instrument, wherever they're placed and however they're placed in a whole bunch of different ways. And I know a lot of composers think of it as like, oh, it's a keyboard, but it's so not just a keyboard. And so it's always fun to see the composers that do write for it that just have a beautiful infinity, and they know the type of instrument fairly intimately. So we have 2 minutes left before we start. Let me just tell everybody a little bit of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be hanging out here watching, and this is Composer's Voice. So Composer's Voice is a TV show that I do here in New York City every 2 weeks, and the idea is to present and promote contemporary music from living composers and the musicians that champion that music. We do that every 2 weeks. It's just a 30-minute show. And this week we're presenting the project 15 Minutes of Fame, where David Bohn was performing in Wisconsin for the Oregon Historical Society. And with that, let me see if I can get this started. Give me 1 second.
This episode will present 15 Minutes of Fame featuring David Bohn on the organ.
Hello from rainy Denmark. My name is Andrej Andrić, and I am originally from Serbia, but I live in Aarhus in Denmark. The piece for organ that you're going to hear is called Intonazione, and it is modeled on Renaissance pieces, introductory works from Renaissance Italy, like those by Andrea Gabrieli. And but I imagine an alternative history where parallel fifths and fourths are the way to build harmony. So it is a familiar texture, but a new way to imagine this introductory piece. Thank you.
Hello, this is Josh Schmidt. Greetings from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Did you know that toccata is just Italian for touch piece? I think that's rather evocative. This is Touch Piece for Organ, written for David Bohn. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Daniel Cochetti. I'm a composer and wrote the devotional aria for 15 Minutes of Fame. Devotional aria devocional, is a work based on the E minor major chord. The main note of the melody, a B natural, is adorned with the remaining 11 notes of the chromatic scale, which are repeated in a free retrograded order. The entire piece has a meditative and religious character. I hope you enjoy it. Greetings from Argentina. Bye-bye.
My name is Tamsin Jones. My piece is called Estampi, and it takes as its inspiration one of the earliest known dance genres. As a composer, I'm interested in using the forms and techniques of early music, but not in a historicist or pastiche way. Rather, I seek out fresh possibilities and allow myself to be influenced by later styles in an effort to build a bridge between the ancient and the modern. In Estampi, I try to do this by having playful use of rhythm and syncopation, by having a sense of tonal change and modulation, and also I try to make full use of the resources of the 1880 Schulke organ to achieve a sense of space, of wideness.
Hello, I am Jean-Pierre Vial, French composer. As a former organist, I was a bit disappointed to compose work for organ without pedals. I resigned myself, however, to composing a short choral where the left hand plays the role of the pedal. Thank you, David, for performing this split choral. Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm Michael Todd Koval, and the piece you're about to hear is a piece I composed for organ. It is based on the hymn tune Veni Creator by Thomas Tallis. The hymn tune flows through the whole thing, sort of like a cantus firmus, but is surrounded by shifting mediant harmony.
Prayer was written for David and for this 15 minutes of fame call. It's written for organ keyboards without the pedal keyboard because that was the organ specification of the call. I was challenged to write 1 minute that encompassed a feeling or an atmosphere that actually took us into a different place. And for me, prayer can mean different things to different people. Sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's expressing something that words cannot say. It's grasping the intangible, that liminal space between thoughts and feelings, longing and needing answers.
Hello everyone, my name is Sohail Shirin, composer, music director, and graduate assistant of San Francisco State University. And today I'm so glad and happy to share my piece with you. Ahimsa for solo organ. I dedicated this piece to my friend David Bohn. And now I'm going to tell you really quick about this piece. Ahimsa totally, it's a collection that I wrote for several solo instruments. And totally is a minimalist piece that shows the idea of non-violence through simple and calm sounds. It uses few notes and gentle change in tone to create a peaceful feeling. The music focuses on silence and quiet moments, showing that calmness and control can be powerful.
My name is David Jason Snow. I'm a composer and retired performing arts librarian residing in New York City. In my program notes for David Bohn's 15 Minutes of Fame performance, I state that my piece, Deprecatio Imperatori Maledictionem Organi, is a soundtrack to the sleazy grindhouse horror flick we're living through at this moment in history. I achieved a suitably cheesy horror movie vibe by creating chord progressions of unrelated minor triads, e.g. G sharp minor followed by E minor, F minor followed by C sharp minor, etc. I'm sure you've heard similar soundtrack cliches before. Add to that the well-worn cinematic trope of scary organ music, and you have a seasonally appropriate minute-long musical malediction, a Deprecatio Imperatori, or deprecation of the emperor. Accordingly, the printed score of the work is prefaced by a profane invocation in Latin, the last stanza of which translates as, O loathsome ochreous vulgarian, weaver of noxious fantasy, rodent-eyed, serpent-tongued, bilious self-copulator, we command you, swallow yourself whole like Ouroboros, and for eternity be no more.
Sarabande laconique. Hello, I'm John Furs. The accompanying photo is me on the summit of a low hill on the coast here in North Norfolk in the UK. My nose is tilted towards where I live on the slope in the distance, the other side of the bay. This is my favorite bird-watching site. The image does not show the trees and bushes below the hill where most of the birds end up. I was an organist, am a music graduate and qualified teacher, and for the majority of my working career was either a lecturer in or teacher of music. On retirement over 10 years ago, I've spent most of my time occupied by nature and the occasional composition. The majority of my works are vocal, sacred choral and secular song. This inevitably short piece was composed in June 2024 as a direct result of the invitation from 15 Minutes of Fame on the composer's site. What follows is an elaboration of the blurb introducing the piece on the score. A minute isn't very long, methought. In fact, only 60 seconds. Thus, my initial thoughts were for a calm, simple, and chromatically scalic piece, possibly ascending and descending. I then decided that it should be solely on the Gedacht stop, with no frenzied changes of registration, liking this purity which harks back to much earlier periods of music. I then had the idea of a note, the lowest, sounding throughout the whole work, a pedal without the use of a pedal stop. To achieve this, the performer is required to employ a wedge. This is to be removed at a convenient spot 3 bars before the final chord, so that all the notes can cease simultaneously. On contemplation, a related dotted rhythm appeared, serendipitously sarabandesque, which introduced a more complicated section. The work evolved quickly into its final form, much sooner than usual for me. I often take months to complete even a short work, with the end even simpler than the beginning. The intervals of the semitone and the octave are both the genesis and the constituents of this composition.
Hello, everyone. It's Paul Ayres here. I've written a little piece called A Conversation. Essentially, it's a Baroque-inspired 2-part invention.
Hello, my name is Paul Burnell.
I'm a composer and recording artist based in London, in the UK. The piece I've written for David Bohn is called Out of the Woebegone Pyre. The title of the piece is taken from a poem, Holy Spring, by the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas. In that poem, Dylan Thomas contrasts the personal tragedies of war with the possibility for hope and renewal.
Good job, David. Nice work.
Thank you. Yeah.
That was
Awesome
wonderful.
work.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, I think there were some problems with the sound. So when I get home tonight, I'm going to make sure to send out pulled audio tracks that I have from that video session, so that everybody
Okay.
can get clean copies, because there were diminuendos that weren't there in the performance, and I think something was messing with the audio. Yeah, as it was being broadcast, because I also don't remember your proof video sounding like that quite. So, or maybe it was just a problem on my end. That's also a possibility.
Yeah, maybe it's just this is a watch party, so it's going. It's kind of there's lots of things going on. I was just about to thank Mark Ward for actually going in and filming and doing all that.
He was fantastic to work with on that.
Yeah, it is awesome. Yeah, and besides, I'll wait for you, David, but we'll be putting up the entire 15 set as this one solid block too. So
good. Yeah,
that's going to be one of my new formats. I'm still getting used to the whole YouTube streaming thing, but we're now I think we're 90 shows in now, so I need to get it. Yeah, start. You do it every week or every second week. They add up. They add up after a while.
You're getting old.
So, yeah. There's that too.
Hey.
Tell me about that. Yeah, Paul, in like one of my other 60 by 60, I forget there was somebody who was just like, oh yeah, we should like count them up and so forth. I was like, yeah, it's good. We've done like 100 or so and so forth. And I think when they counted them up, what do they say? The more the more you do, the more you get, right? I think in the end, I wound up with 350 performances of that, and
wow, that's great.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you, David, about the performances of this set. You said you just performed it again recently, as alongside the second set.
No, I performed the second and third sets.
Okay.
One concert. On two very different organs from this. One of them a larger historic instrument, and the other one a very small modern instrument. In fact, the modern instrument was just completed last year.
Wow. Okay.
So
has this set been performed since August when they were premiered?
No, I haven't had the energy.
I was just curious. Yeah.
Yeah. I have thought about it for some things coming up, but nothing has come through solid yet. If it does, I will let you know.
Well, if you fancy coming to the UK, let me know as well. It'd be great to have you over here at some stage. So.
We'll have to see.
Yeah,
we'll have
it's
to
a long
see,
way to come.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, and David, also thanks from me as well for that fantastic performance.
Very welcome. Incidentally, for the first, I had to perform this twice for the Oregon Historical Society because the church is incredibly small. So I did it with the major ending once, and I did it with the minor ending once for each of the sets. And then when I did the video session with Mark Ward, I recorded it twice and left it to Robert to pick which one to do for the set. So ultimately, we'll get audio recordings of both of them.
All right, okay. Thank you. Yeah, just to explain that the last bar has the option for David to play either an F sharp or an F natural. I mean, it's going to either be a D major chord or a D minor chord, depending on, as I think I said in the score, how you feel at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't tell you which one I did for the first set and which for the second set. So I have absolutely no recollection of that.
Okay. And for the performances, was there much?
We have a recording of both.
Okay. And for the performances, did you try as much as possible to run them as close together as possible, or was that technically it was just impossible to do that?
I kept them as close as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, there was generally very few seconds between. I think the actual performances were running around 16, 17 minutes for the whole cycle.
Yeah, Paul, I think I know what you're getting at. It's so funny. I just did a 15 minutes of fame for flute and electronics. So for everybody, 60 by 60 and 15 minutes of fame is kind of a spin-off of 60 by 60. So 60 by 60 was 1 minute electronic pieces played back for back. It was synchronized to an analog clock. So every minute there was another piece. But since 15 Minutes of Fame has, it's with live musicians, it's hard to have it like so regimented. So over the years, we've just, the pieces are about a minute and they're played one after another. But when we did the flute and electronics, the flutist played it for EMM like a 60 by 60 and just one after another, after another, after another. And it's so funny. It took me off guard because anyway, we were live streaming it. So I'm doing all the titles and I realized, oh, wow, I didn't set up a clock in front of me.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, because it's a fascinating. I mean, I don't know if anyone's heard in performance the 60 by 60, but it's such an interesting idea because you begin to think about beginnings and endings so carefully when things are running together. But as a composer, you don't know where your piece is gonna slot in. So it's random in a sense, but it's so meticulously organized. It's an interesting contradiction. Yeah. And I guess for you, David, as well, is trying to decide in a concert what the order of the pieces is going to be must be either an added joy or an added complication. I don't know.
Well, I've done a number of programs where not 1 minute pieces, but like 3 to 4 minute pieces, and I do spend a lot of time figuring out how the pieces are going to fit with each other. And so that for the 15 Minutes of Fame, that's just a carryover from my standard programming practice. The things that I consider as far as how pieces fit together is very much the same, whether I'm doing a bunch of goofy late 19th and early 20th century like classical pieces, or whether I'm doing 15 Minutes of Fame. And so that was all very much the same. But like I said at the beginning, the one big difference here was I was also having to map, okay, did I use this particular stop combination in another piece so that I would have the maximum I think of all the possible combinations with that would be available with this organ, I skipped 2, and that was simply because there wasn't any pieces where they worked. They just didn't sound right in the pieces, so I didn't use them. But the rest of the combinations all get heard at some point or another in the course of the set. So you really get to hear everything that organ can do.
It's a really nicely balanced set, David. Did you have access to the organ when you were trying the pieces out and choosing them?
I didn't actually worry about that. I knew the instrument because I've seen it and played it before, so I had that memory in me. And the fact of the matter is that nothing, when I first finally got to play them on site, which was about 2 weeks before the performance, the only thing that changed were a couple of registrations where
I guess that changed too. Oh no.
Okay.
Well, we'll wait to see if he comes back.
Yeah. So after writing this piece, Rob, I submitted it for another call because that's what you do when you have a piece, right? And there's something that I don't know about called the London Contemporary Church Festival. Yeah, help me out, Paul. London Contemporary Church Music Festival. And this piece was chosen as one of the ones that they're going to do. So I get to hear it again over here. I'm not for sure where it's going to be performed, but I am thrilled. Yeah. I never really thought such a little piece would be picked up again, and it was. So there we go.
Yeah. So I'm pretty proud of these 1 minute projects.
Yeah.
I mean,
You
Paul,
should be. I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah, anyway, we all get these great ideas. Some work, some don't. I'm kind of, I'm happy that 60 by 60 and 15 minutes of fame in general work. The coming up in a few, how many weeks? 3 weeks. There's another 1 minute work for an ensemble where he did 1 minute and he's expanded it out to several minutes, and and that's going to get performed at a festival.
Hi, sorry about that. The StreamYard app had a baby or something like that.
No worries.
Yeah. So there just really wasn't much. I seem to have, if I've played an instrument before, I seem to have a good memory of how that organ behaves and so forth, and can pretty much program without having to try it out on site. So this particular program, I worked it all out at my church 2 weeks before the concert. I tried it out there, and I had to adjust one registration. So it worked out quite nicely.
Yeah.
David, when you took a small break from us, we were talking a little bit about how the pieces get, more play and a greater life. I know. Like one of the composer dilemmas is, you write a piece, and even if it does get selected, it gets its one premiere performance and then kind of, disappears into the ether. I mean, part of that's kind of the name of the game, but, as I was mentioning to Kirsten, she just got her piece selected at another place that, I've been fortunate with this project to hear 1 minute pieces get selected again and again and again and be expanded and so forth. You've had some experience with that too, right?
Oh yeah. Well, the probably the greatest example was the Robert Dick concert, where he played one of my pieces, and I sent the video link to a friend of mine who's a flutist over in Germany. She's worked with people like Stockhausen and Kaya Sariaho and so forth. And I sent her the link, and about a half an hour later, I got this message back, all in caps: "Send me your piece immediately." And I've actually gotten 4 or 5 performances from her, from Camilla, in the interim from it. 4 or 5 that I know of. Yeah. And ultimately, I did actually write 5 more companion pieces to create a suite around the 1 minute piece I wrote for Robert Dick. So,
and I feel like, Paul, you've had some experience with that too, right?
I'm trying to think. Not so much with the 60 by 60 pieces or the 50-minute fame piece, but I think that what I find is sometimes there's projects that call for 1-page pieces. Pieces that will fit on 1 page. I mean, the In C has been an inspiration for generations of composers, and that turns out, or the postcard pieces series that came out. I can't remember who did that now, but quite often those small pieces, because the concept is has to be so clear and so precise, and you can see it, immediately there on the page. There's something inherently attractive to a lot of performers in just an immediate response. And the audience, I think that translates into an audience as well, because the concept has to be so clear for on a 1-page piece. An audience also has a way of picking up that feeling for a piece. And so I think that's why sometimes those can be so successful. So I've had a couple of pieces, 1-page pieces, that I've had, you know, some of my most successful pieces, a piano piece and a spoken word piece, which has been performed quite a few times. Both of them been performed quite a few times now. So it's, you know, similar. The miniature, the idea of the miniature is, you know, is very attractive for lots of reasons. That's not to say Bruckner doesn't have his place, but
well,
But so do miniatures.
Bruckner wrote some surprisingly miniature pieces here and there. So
yeah. Well, then, you know, perhaps he had that 15 Minutes of Fame project back in the 19th century that he.
You're right. That he made a blogger. That's awesome. Fabulous.
But when you put up the call list here, Rob, for there were 4 sopranos, or I think one was a mezzo, to have 4 1-minute pieces. I took that as inspiration to use haiku, and then of course I wrote Andy's piece on a haiku. So I now have 5 haiku that are all 1-ish minutes. But it's a nice little set of pieces for a singer. You know, they can take 1 or 2 of them, but it was just inspired by the call, you know, of writing something very short. And I thought, well, haiku are short poems, aren't they? So that fits into about a minute. And so I now have 5 haiku, which is great.
Yeah. There was a project that I took part in that gets even more, not more extreme, but a sort of a twist on this idea of the miniature, was that there's a composer in the UK called Janet Oates, and she organised a series of pieces around the idea of, she called it closet music, which isn't quite what the title implies actually, but the idea was music that you imagined rather than heard audibly. So it was all in, you know, instructions or guidance or text or poems. So, you know, there was no actual audio. It was just, it had to live in the mind somehow, these musical pieces. So that's another interesting project. So,
I like that.
Yeah. So it's, you might be able to find a closet music, Janet Oates. Yeah. And before I remember, it was nice to see Paul Ayres there. I know Paul from a long time ago, and it's nice to see him again.
Yeah, Paul and I have been kind of periodically intersecting over the years, and he's been to Wisconsin a couple times. He's got a number of contacts in the Midwest, and so he's performed here and done workshops here and such. So it was kind of fun.
I should also say, David, there's been a lot of composers that have been reaching out saying thank you and bravo and so forth. I know it says Jason Torrens, but it's not. It's I'm forgetting her first name now. Pamela, right?
No, Jason is. I just premiered a piece of his on the second set back in January, so that's where he's coming from.
Right. And Luis Maljevic or Maljevic.
Yeah.
And Vinci
he didn't submit for this. It would have been interesting to see what he would have done for Oregon.
Yes.
So.
I want to encourage all composers. Write. Send 1 minute. Lots of 1 minutes.
Yeah.
We did.
Well, for what it's worth, one of the things that interests me most is actually getting pieces for organ by people who are not organists. Yes, there are pieces that don't work, but I've also seen some very creative reinterpretations that are outside of what you would consider normal organ music. And it's kind of fun to see what somebody who doesn't know all the historical baggage of organ music, doesn't know the repertory, comes up with. And I find that refreshing sometimes.
Is that harder to perform?
Not always. Out of my very first set my very first 15 Minutes of Fame organ set back in 2013, I had a piece by, I forget the name of the composer, but it was very clear that he didn't really have an idea of the organ, or at least didn't have an idea of organ music, but what he wrote fit so perfectly on the organ while simultaneously being totally unlike any organ music I had ever seen. And it was a really fun piece. In fact, I used it as the opener for that set. Yeah, there are some where you go, now how am I supposed to make that happen? And there are a lot of really wonderful pieces I've gotten from non-organists that make you stop and think a bit about what is organ music. And I find that very refreshing.
Great.
So
well,
okay.
everyone, thank you so much for joining us in this little watch party. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to be here. I know it's late in England. How late is it there? Not too bad.
Just before 8 o'clock, not too late.
Well, for what it's worth, I think a friend of mine may have been watching on the YouTube link. He's in I think Brisbane, Australia. He actually had a family emergency that brought him to Brisbane, and he said, "Yeah, this will work perfectly. It'll be done before I have the appointment I have to get to in the morning." So,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Other side of the world.
Every once in a while I debate on our show date and time, and whether Saturdays. Well, for me, it's Saturdays at 2 o'clock. So, it's if anybody has suggestions of better times, I'm always looking to get to be more accessible to audiences. But so far, this has been pretty good for Europe, West Coast, East Coast, Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good time. Yeah,
it's all right. So far, so good.
Yeah.
We had a pretty good splash between the two shows. So that's great. It's nice people are chiming in.
Good.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks again, guys.
Oh.
Paul,
Okay.
so great to see you. I think this is our first time we've seen each other.
Do you know, I think we met very briefly in Stratford, not London, Stratford, very briefly before one of our. Yeah.
That is correct. We did meet briefly for that.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah, and thank you, Rob, for. And thank you so much for organising this particular event that I've taken part in, but all the other stuff as well. It's just I do appreciate it. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Right, and thank you both for your pieces.
Yeah, no, thank you, David. Yeah,
it's a pleasure.
Yeah, the projects wouldn't be anywhere without the composers.
Mm-hmm.
And the musician too, David. You
and the musician is a big part of it.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the relatively few, if you'll forgive the term, switch hitters relative to Vox Novus, working both as a composer and a performer in the series, in the whole thing.
Yeah. It's great to present your work on both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Great, guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next time.
See you then.
Take care.
Fantastic.
Great to see you all.
Sure.
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Bye.